Hello and welcome back to another devlog on my airborne farming simulator. Lately, I've spent a lot of time thinking about game progression and how the player's lands should develop over time. It makes sense that it would start off small and gradually get bigger, but there's plenty of ways you could allow that to happen, and I wanted to make sure that the method I settled on would be the best. Specifically, I wanted it to be linked to the player's progression while being fun to engage with and producing an environment that's easy on the eyes. All of this is a lot easier said than done, but it's important that I get it right since it's such a fundamental system. My first challenge was to decide on an actual progression path to link to. The obvious choice is money, since you get more the longer you play, but I also wanted something more incremental. The thing is, the game as a whole also lacks more obvious milestones, so now seems like a good opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. This led me to develop the new certificate system, which works like this. You start with the lowest level certificate, and at a significant price, you have the ability to upgrade it. The purpose of a certificate is to represent your skill level, but every time you advance, you also earn various rewards. I'll definitely come up with more interesting rewards in the future, but at a minimum, you'll get a boost to all of your sell prices, and importantly for now, more land development options. I think this system could be a good way to motivate the player by recognizing their achievements and giving them more ways to progress further. With that settled, I now needed to determine how the land could actually be developed. One option is to allow the player to buy ground tiles that they can place individually, and to use the certificate level to determine how far they can build out. The main problem I see with this idea is that giving the player complete freedom to add ground wherever they want would naturally encourage them to build the most efficient layout they can, which would probably just be a big plain of land. In terms of gameplay, it would be much less interesting to navigate than, say, a series of islands that you have to jump around, but it would also just be plain ugly. Essentially, giving the player complete control over the terrain would cause a conflict between their goal to succeed and their goal to have an enjoyable experience. Ideally, the best strategy should also be the most enjoyable. Instead, I could try a completely streamlined approach, where you can buy new islands from a shop, but each one is added to a predefined spot around your property. This definitely solves the issue of being too open, but I imagine most people would agree that this sounds extremely underwhelming. So I tried to think of a much better solution that's somewhere in the middle, and I think I found one. How it works is that occasionally you'll be able to obtain items called island templates. When you use them on your property, your movement will be locked in place, and you'll be able to position a corresponding island. If you move it to a spot where it's not overlapping anything, you'll be able to place it down, at which point the template will be consumed. What I really like about this system is that there's a lot of room for creativity since you can place islands wherever you want, but the limitations that do exist feel very fair and intuitive. For example, the only types of islands you can add are ones that are in your inventory. They must also be placed near the player and with a bit of empty space around the edges. Importantly, these limitations also serve to protect the layout from becoming uninteresting or unattractive. So where exactly do you get these island templates from? The answer is that you buy them from the island shop. To even gain access to it, you need to upgrade your certificate at least once. From there, you can buy from a limited selection of one template. To unlock more, you'll have to buy one that's already available or upgrade your certificate. This means that islands are acquired in a mostly linear order, and the more valuable islands are saved for later in the game. Admittedly, this gives the player less freedom than if they were all available at the start, but I feel like it makes progression more rewarding, since each new island represents a higher level of achievement, tied to your profits and certificate level. By limiting the supply, it also prevents you from just spamming the same island type over and over. Something else that's interesting is that since templates are just normal items, there's nothing stopping me from also hiding them throughout the world, acting like a unique prize for exploring and interacting with it. Going back to my success criteria, I think it's fair to say that this method checks all of the boxes. But of course, I'm always open to changing things, so I'd be interested to hear if you have any ideas I'd never considered. Now, there are a couple of other things missing, mainly a way to remove islands if you don't like where you've placed them, and a way to connect them. For the former, I think it makes sense to add some kind of item that allows you to destroy an island and retrieve its template, provided that there's nothing on top of it. As for connecting them, my original idea was to allow the player to place metal bars on the sides of the islands, but I feel like that would encourage the player to surround as much of the islands as possible to maximize ground area, which probably wouldn't look too appealing. I think a better solution would probably be to allow the player to place bridges that actually have to connect places and would almost certainly look nicer. For now, I'm really happy with how this system enables land development while making the gameplay fun and interesting. Combined with the certificate system, I feel like these additions also do a good job of fleshing out the game's progression path, making it feel like an actual game. Thanks for watching, bye.